Hi, Cristi. Welcome to the Genetic Genius Podcast. I am so excited to have you as a guest today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You're so welcome. Before we dive deep into your new book, which I can't wait to talk about, let's just hear about you. What are you doing for fun? What's your passion? A little bit about your background story. How did you get to be in this spiritual place that you are now? There's a lot of answers probably there.
Okay. Right. I'm like, which one should I begin with? What do I like to do? I'll start with what you said first. What do I like to do fun and what is my passions? What I like to do for fun, I love music. I love dancing. And that could just be literally me putting a Spotify playlist on and dancing around in my living room. Like it doesn't even have to be going out to the club or anything else. There's nothing that shifts my energy quicker than getting just completely enthralled into some amazing beat and allowing my body to move and pulse and breathe and free up any of my stuck or trapped or anxious energy and just express myself. So that's my go-to. A day is not done unless I've done a little dance break.
That's great. I love it. Yeah. Dance break. When I was in medical school, we always had a dance break when we were studying. You're like, put on your favorite tunes. We got to get out of the brain into the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No. And there are all these studies now that are saying, because we're sitting so much more than before, especially being on these Zooms, that some people say every 20 minutes, that's too frequent for me because it breaks my flow, but I do set a timer on my phone for I like symbolic numbers because I do. So I do it every 108 minutes. I have a little timer that goes off on my phone and I stand up and I jump up and down. Or
right. Totally.
And then, okay, now for just like 20 seconds, I sit back down and now there's all this science showing how that not only helps just like circulation and brain fog and creative impulse, that it also helps our anxiety and our depression and everything else. So I was like, okay, good. I was doing that right.
You got that one nailed.
I got that one nailed. So a little bit about my journey into getting into this spiritual domain in which I live, because I think of my whole life as yoga. I really see yoga as this unification of all parts of myself, and from this integrated place of me, of how I can be with all parts of life. And what is that dance? So to me, everything is yoga, from having this conversation with you to eating food to being in downward dog on my mat. And it doesn't mean that I am conscious and aware in every moment. Of course not, because that would be, impossible. But bringing that consciousness and awareness into as much as my life as possible.
Love it.
Yeah. So I'll give you like try to give you the little shortened story. I was an athlete from a very young age, like literally from basically out of the womb. That I was a gymnast and then a platform diver. Wow. And I was training for the Olympics. Yes. 33 feet up in the air.
Oh my gosh.
Doing handstands, flipping 3.5 times and trying to get in the water with as little splash as possible was how I spent my days.
Yeah. Technique.
Yeah, exactly. Technique and a lot of bravery, I guess. Like now I'm like, I think I was a little crazy. Like looking back at what I did, it is pretty wild to think about now. But I had one vision my whole life, from literally age 3 till age 24. And that was to go to the Olympics. And there was no other purpose. There was no other dream. There was no other goal. And everything I did was for that purpose. I moved away from home when I was 15 to train at an Olympic training center. I, went to where I went to college was to train with a specific coach. Everything was very planned. The way I ate, the way I trained, everything. I didn't go on vacation with my family because then I would fall behind my competitors.
Wow.
All of this. And had a lot of injuries, and I assumed that every injury failure was not an option. Like reaching the goal was not an option. So I thought that every setback I had was going to make my success story that much richer, that much better, that much, oh my gosh, this is what she came back from. And I compression fractured my spine once when I was 14. Yeah. And again, when I was about 19 or 20. And so from the years of 2020 from age 20 to 24, I was basically everything was pain management. I was, seeing before and after practice, whether it was the chiropractor or the acupuncturist or the the PT people and ice and heat and all this stuff. But also when you're competing at that level, that's just part of life. So you don't think that everybody is dealing with something. So it didn't seem like that was what was going to end my quest. But then my back finally broke.
Oh.
And that the doctor literally sat me down and said, if you don't stop now, you're going to be walking with a cane by the time you're 30.
Wow.
And your spine is in the condition of a 75-year-old woman. So it's not an option to continue like this. You have to stop. And I was beyond devastated because, like I said, I had no purpose, no drive, no dream outside of this. And I thought I failed. Like I literally thought I failed. My identity was this athlete. My identity was this diver or this gymnast, or like even my parents' friends who, if my parents became friends with them after I moved away from home at 15, if they met me later, they'd be like, oh, you're the diver. That was that's how much I was identified as this person. And so I didn't know who I was. I went through a time of deep depression and anxiety, like simultaneously, like flipping back and forth, basically from anxiety to depression. I didn't know, I actually didn't have that language at that time, but now I understand that what it was. And I had to go obviously on my physical healing journey, but it was actually my emotional and mental healing journey that probably was more painful.
Right. Yeah.
And through that process, someone said to me, hey, I really want to take you to a yoga class. And yoga was not what it is today. Like the only thing I knew about yoga, it wasn't cool. It wasn't popular. It wasn't, it wasn't
like one yoga t-shirt and
wearing like a white leotard, hovering above the clouds. But the interesting thing was about that time, Madonna was like on the cover of like Time magazine, like doing a crazy yoga pose. And she was like completely shredded. And I was like, okay, if yoga's good enough for Madonna, I guess it's good enough for me.
I'll try
it. Yeah. And so I went, and I knew nothing about the practice. I didn't know yoga was a spiritual practice. I had no concept of what spirituality meant outside of religion. I grew up Catholic, and I didn't know that there was anything. I didn't have that understanding. So I thought I was going to an exercise class that was called yoga. That was, even again, like seeing Madonna in that shape with all these muscles, I was like, oh, yoga did that. Yeah. And what was really fascinating was at that time, classes were 90 minutes and every single breath of the practice was guided. It was inhale, reach your arms up, exhale, fold forward, inhale this, exhale that. And I had done every kind of movement that I think existed, through my years of training and all these different modalities. And there was never an intention on the breath beyond maybe lifting a barbell above my head. Okay, exhale, push it up. But it wasn't this continual, almost methodical, hypnotic inhaling and exhaling. And even though the class wasn't dance, like it invoked a dance like sense in me, because there was like this rhythm and relationship that started happening on the thread of each inhale and exhale. And believe it or not, it was that sparked my curiosity versus the shapes I was making, because it was so different. And it wasn't like dance where you're counting 1, 2, 3, and I really think it was after that I was like, wow, if I did this, the first thing that came to mind was like, if I did this like for competition, like I would have been able to manage my anxiety so much more, because I was the diver that in practice was like the one to beat. And then I would get into the meet and I would want it so bad. I would try too hard and I would make the stupid mistakes that you never made in the meet. Like I used to dive off of a 33-foot concrete tower, and I kid you not, in competition, I literally was like, the tower's moving. Like I thought, like that's how bad my anxiety was. I thought the tower was moving. And obviously my logical brain, so I was like, why weren't we doing this kind of breath regulation? And so that's where my head went first. And that's what actually made me continue to return to the mat, was really that curiosity. I did, and I again didn't have this language around it at the time, but it also definitely was a down regulation of my nervous system.
Right. Totally.
So I left there, and my anxiety was at bay, and I was like, oh, there I am. I was like, because I just I wasn't used to dealing with those things. And I like thought who I was gone, like the diver was gone. So that was part of the identity. That was me. I'm not that person anymore. And it was like, oh, no, Cristi's still here. Like really, like my essence was still here. And it just slowly started to like fill out through my life. And I moved to New York City shortly after. And I met a teacher there named Shiva Ray, who actually was from California, but she was coming to the place in which I worked, and people were freaking out that she was.
Right.
And they had a video of her above the screen of the front desk, and she was like literally dancing in like the Mojave Desert or something. And this
That's great.
Like, yeah. And I was like, this isn't yoga.
What kind of yoga is this?
Yeah. I was like, the yoga I've done does not look like this. And they're like, and then what got me to be like, oh, I have to go to her class was they described her. I was like, I don't understand. What is this? And they said, she's the Madonna of yoga. And I was like, okay, the first thing. So now, and I went, and it was actually through that first practice that shifted something from me just being curious about the practice, for me being like, okay, I need to know what this is.
Right.
And,
wow.
and yeah, and there's so much more I can share, but that's really what got me on this yoga path. And I was lucky enough that I got introduced to the chakras, the energy centers of the body, very early on in my yoga, on my yoga path. And what was so amazing about that, because I was saying I was dealing with quite a bit of depression, was the way I saw the chakras, or the way they were explained to me, was this, these dynamic pulsing wheels of color and light. And I could imagine like all the diversity of my being, all the color of aliveness that actually is inside of me is me. Like happy. And it was like, I started coming, there was an excitement and a hope and an energy that started to awaken, because I could believe that I am all of this. And it was like, maybe it was like and it was slow. It wasn't overnight. It was like the engine, yeah. Like, but the engine of it started to turn on, and my life ever since has been basically on this continued journey of the last almost 20 years now.
Wow. That's amazing.
Healing, awakening, physically, mentally, emotionally, and obviously spiritually.
Totally. I love that. Yeah. You went from the diving board platform to the yoga mat platform.
Exactly.
Yeah. Diving into the yoga. I love it. And what a powerful story. It's to create a new identity from that spiritual perspective, really finding yourself. You had to find yourself. It's like you didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And having that spiritual connection, like, thank God you had yoga.
Yeah. And I think if I was in a different if I was in like the best mental state, and I went to yoga because I literally didn't know what else to do. And I was like, fine, I'll try it.
So sure, why not?
I think, but it's in those moments of when we're really grappling of, I don't know what to do next, that we might be willing to reach and try something that we wouldn't normally have done. And that might sound weird to someone today, because yoga isn't out there today in most places in the world.
Right.
It's really accessible and really common. But at this time, like even when I started really getting into yoga, my parents were like, we're not sure about this yoga thing. And they were all confused. They're like, we think Cristi's a Buddhist. And we're like,
what's happening to her?
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm not a Buddhist. But they're like, but you have all these like statues and crystals. And I'm like, that doesn't make me a Buddhist.
There's
actually the statues are Hindu, but
now your parents probably understand a little bit better. Oh, nice. Yay. Oh, I love that. That's fascinating, because it gives that that platform for us to dive deep into your new book, which is so exciting. And that really is the basis for your new book. I would think the Chakra Rituals. I'll hold it up so our people out there can see it. Woohoo! It's a great book. I love it. It was really fun. It's so easy to read, and we're going to dive into it. But so you talked a little bit about chakras, but let's just first lay that foundation so people know what what we're talking about.
Yes.
What is a chakra?
The easiest way to say what a chakra is it's like, and everything in the universe is energy. So I always start with that, because for people that are like, I don't know about this chakra thing, it sounds woo woo, or I don't know if it's real. Like, science has proven that everything in the universe is energy, vibrating, pulsating at different frequencies, or at different speeds. And our chakras are energy, and we have two kinds of energy. We have physical energy, or we have a physical body, like what we can touch, what we can hold, what we can see. And then we have subtle energy. And the subtle is what is beyond the five senses. Like, we can't lay our hands on it, just like our breath. We know it's there. We know there's air in the atmosphere. We can breathe it in. We're alive, but we can't bottle it, hold it, save it for later. So that's the subtle energy, or the subtle body, and the chakras operate on this subtle level. But the thing to know is that everything that happens in the subtle level impacts and affects the physical level, or happens in the subtle body affects the physical body. So you can think of the chakras as these wheels of, like I said, pulsating, spinning. What does a wheel do? We want a wheel to spin. We want it to have a nice smooth ride. So this beautiful spinning wheel of energy, dynamic, power, color, consciousness, and light. And there's 7 main chakras in the body that run from the base of the pelvis all the way to the crown of the head. And each one, I like to say, it has its own superpower, right? Each one, you can actually think of them as mini brains, right? Each one is responsible for a different level of consciousness, right? Different parts of the body, different glands in the body, different psychological aspects, and even different spiritual aspects. So there's not a high, even though they run vertically, there's not a hierarchy amongst them, that each one is its own energy center, its own power center within us. And then together as a system, they really provide us with an evolutionary map for our own awakening, healing, empowerment, and transformation. And I always start with awakening, because we have to wake up consciousness first before we can actually heal anything at like the real level. Isn't it chakra healing first? No, actually, it's chakra awakening first, because we have to wake up the consciousness. We have to wake up. What's the real root of your fear? What's the real root of this anxiety? What's the real root of your heart issue, your relationship issues? Not just trying to, my heart hurts, I need to heal it. So we start with awakening, and then we can heal, and then we can transform, and then we can live our fullest, most empowered life possible by bringing all these chakras online, so to speak. And the other piece of this that I think is important to mention is, I see the chakras also as a map for well-being, because it addresses the whole person, right? So we're addressing the physical health, right? Our physical body, our physical vitality. We're addressing the emotional health, the psychological health. We are addressing the spiritual health. So it's really this map of relational health, how we relate with each other, addressing the mental, the intellectual health as well. So it's really this map that brings together all the layers of the self, or in yoga, we call it the koshas, all the dimensions of the self. And when that happens, like true well-being, and well-being could be health, well-being could be happiness, well-being can mean so many different things. But I think that's one of the really beautiful gifts of this system that comes from ancient India. Just to be clear, I did not make up the chakras. They date back to 4,000 years ago.
They've been around for a while.
They've been around for a while.
People on the planet.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great, Cristi. I love that explanation. Really clear. It helps to set that framework. And I really loved how you talked about the different aspects of they're not just a form of their energy, but they affect the whole aspect of the body. And it sounds like they also connect and help or I would say energize the DNA, because the DNA is within every cell. So of course we have these energy centers inside each cell. And so
Yes.
those are going to
Yes.
be affected by the chakra centers, it sounds like, as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you for bringing that point in.
Yeah, totally. So I loved how also you said the awakening piece and so can you tell if your chakras are out of balance? Can you feel it? Do you need to have someone do a reading for you from a holistic practitioner and say like, oh yeah, can you use your book? Can you tell if you're walking down the
Can
street?
you use a pendulum?
Right. Can you use a pendulum? Oh yeah, I can totally tell my third chakra's out of balance. I feel sick to my stomach. Are there ways that you can sense it, or do you really need to be tuned in, as you said, awakened for that healing to take place?
That's a great question. So some people might disagree with me. I don't believe that we need anyone to tell us anything.
Right.
And that doesn't,
and
that also doesn't mean that we don't refer to great doctors and we don't refer to great therapists. I don't mean that, but we don't need to give our power over to someone else, for someone else to tell us actually how we feel or what we are connected to or what we are not connected to. Like, this is also the journey of the chakra system, because it is bringing you back to you, to pay attention to you, to get to know you on all these different levels, so that it's not just, oh, I just feel out of sorts today. You start to pay it, because sometimes we get into these phases where maybe we wake up one day and we're like, wow, I haven't felt good for weeks, months, years. But if we have some kind of practice, whether that is a few breaths in the morning, whether that's a movement, whatever, there's a myriad of practices, and I share a myriad in the book, and I'll circle back to that. But if we have even just a daily practice of spending 1 minute of checking in with ourselves, like feeling your feet on the ground, taking your hands maybe to any of these places, maybe it's your low belly, maybe it's your solar plexus, maybe it's your heart, and taking a breath in and out, and okay, how am I doing? Like,
checking in with yourself.
It's literally checking in with you and just being so on it, like not for anybody else. Because we also put on so many masks and so many facades, right? Oh, I'm fine. I'm great. Are you? That we feel we have to be this, that we sometimes get so disconnected to actually what's really going on, or we're operating at a fight or flight level because of life is really stressful and we just came out of this crazy pandemic and we don't know how we're going to survive, or there's so many different reasons that we disconnect.
Yeah.
Because it's sometimes difficult to be connected, because what is actually real and what is actually happening may not be that fantastic, but sometimes it is amazing. So the first thing I would tell someone, is yes, getting a tool like my book would be just an amazing thing, because I will handhold you through each energy center. The way the book is designed, if you do it in the way it was designed, is you spend 1 week or 1 month, but 1 week with each energy center. So you read some of the information and then you start to do these practices, because we can't theoretize a lot. We can't keep it in theory. Sorry, my words are not coming out properly. We can't just keep this in the mind. We have to move it into the body, move it into the heart, move it into all of these dimensions of our being. Otherwise, if we just keep it in the mind, we're missing those other layers that we're saying we're trying to integrate. So through that, you're going to gain consciousness, gain awareness, and go, I've not been aware that I am ungrounded most of the time, or I'm trying to it's very difficult for me to be present. Like, my body's here, but my mind is in 9 million different places. Okay, well, here's some practice that you can do to do that. Or if we move up to the second chakra, there's that feeling of, actually, I don't know how I feel. Like, do you want spaghetti or do you want lasagna? I don't know. You know, I don't know. I don't care. I'm fine. But how do you really feel? Can you connect into what brings you joy? Can you remember what brings you joy? What brings you pleasure? Awakening up that juiciness of life. So often it's so easy to become numb, right, to what we feel and to what we desire. And we want to have that living relationship and connection with it. And then, our third chakra has to do with our power. So how are we showing up powerfully? Are the conversations we're having powerful? Are we able to take action in our life to move in the direction of our dreams? Are we able to strengthen our will? And do we have enough energy to actually take action? Because obviously if we don't have enough energy, then even if we have the best intention, we're not going to do anything. As you're learning, it takes a little bit of learning about each of the chakras to be able to self-assess. I mean, you could put your hands on your heart right now and close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. And I can ask you, like, how do you really feel right now? What's in your heart right now? And if you allow yourself to drop into your heart and breathe in here, you might be able to give an answer. And it might be actually, I feel a little sad right now. I'm grieving the loss of my uncle who passed away from COVID. And I'm actually feeling that today, and it's making me feel a little hopeless. Or it could be something like, it's just like learning to be in the most intimate relationship with life, but
with yourself. Yeah.
And then from that place, you have the ability to reach those same levels of intimacy with another person.
Wow. So profound. I love that. And it was a great explanation of how each of the ones that you talked about, each of those chakras were their own, like you said, that own brain, that own entity, and they all communicate with each other, like their own little brains communicating as our brain does with every part of the body in its wonderful and massive communication highway.
Yes, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like it's the central nervous system, really.
Right. Yeah.
In so many ways. And another way you could think of the chakras as the organs of the energy body.
Yeah.
So you can also think of them, how like the lungs aren't gonna, sorry, I guess the lungs aren't, like the heart's not gonna try to be the liver. The liver's not gonna be the heart, but
they each have their own job in the body and in life, for sure.
Yeah.
One thing that I really liked about your book, what I wanted to talk about, was the subtitle, The Awakening the Wild Woman Within, because I think that's great. And so what's the meaning behind that? And do you mean, what is the part of awakening for women? Why is it so important? Are we, are we asleep on the planet? What's going on? Why do we have this need to be awakened?
I could have made the title Awakening the Wild One Within. That was when I was at the beginning stages, that was a consideration. And I just felt very called to direct this book more specifically to women specifically because of the time that we're in.
Right.
When I started working on this, the Me Too movement was very much in place. And we had 3 females run as candidates for presidency for the first time ever.
Right.
There is this rise of the feminine right now. And I think it is very important, no matter what you choose to do in the world, that females in particular, that we need to rise up. We need to stand together, and we need to change our relationship with ourselves and heal and awaken our own selves so that we are not tearing each other down. Because I think that we have these women coming up, and what do women do? They're catty, they're jealous, and then they're manipulating and talking back. How often do you see other women bringing women down? And from my perspective, if you are doing the work to awaken the wild woman means something different to every person.
Right.
I map it on the chakra system in a specific way, but it's still going to mean something different, because being a wild, authentic woman is going to mean something very different to you than me. And from day to day, that might change, because that's part of, I think of the original wild woman as Mother Nature, right? And one day the wind is blowing and there's a storm, and the next day the sun is shining. There's all these different faces, and how do we embrace every face, not judge one good or bad, but embrace it all, right?
Yeah.
So part of this concept was first, yes, I want this feminine awakening within us, so that we can come and we can use our power, we can use our voices, we can act from our hearts, from this place of emotionality, channel our emotions in a positive way, really anchor into our intuition, and make a positive impact and change in the world in whichever way we are showing up to do that, big and small.
Yeah.
And let that ripple effect happen. And when you're coming from that integrated place, you're going to help other women rise versus tear them down.
Right.
And that's what we need. That's what I believe one of the things we need right now. This is not to leave out the masculine. This is not to shame the masculine and, just take down the patriarchy, but there needs to be an integrated rise of the matriarchy as well.
Yeah, right.
And I think, to me, this work can, again, I'll go back to that word map, provide us with a map that we can do that. And yeah, I guess that would be, I hope that answered it for you.
Oh yeah, totally. And I just so agree with that, because I think so it was so interesting when we look at the 60s, we had this kind of this revolution within the female population. Strong, we have to do everything. And then something happened. I almost feel like we did too much. Right.
Yes,
right now we have to be the person that can work the best job, the best mother, the best, the caretaker, everything. And there's wait, we got lost along the way. Not to say that all those things are not super important, but I think there has to be, like you said, that integration of the female power in a way to support each other. I love that you mentioned that collective of female consciousness support throughout the world.
Absolutely. And two other points I'd like to make is the first one being, some of us didn't have examples of what a positive female role model might have been, or maybe there was abuse in your family. And I believe by this integration that happens within ourselves and us doing it then collectively, we can actually heal past generations. And then we are also paving the way to heal the future generations. Is super incredible and important. And my second point I just lost, so if it comes back, I'll circle back to it. Sorry about that.
I was talking about revolution and the importance of women.
I got it. So it was to the point of us feeling like we have to do everything and we have to do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And the point I wanted to make was, I think by better understanding you and what you're connected to, and you're more closely connected to all those things, that the need to do everything and the need to do everything perfect starts to fall away. Because there might be things that you're doing right now that you don't even know why you're doing to begin with. They might have been someone else's dream, someone else's desire. So I think also through this, gaining this real honest, raw, real relationship with self, we can make more empowered choices of what is the best use of my time, my energy, my heart, my love, and how am I, and then from that place, how am I going to serve? And it might just be in 3 ways, not 75 ways. You know? But,
what makes you happy, what brings you that joy, so important. And then when we look back on our life, we're not going to remember the things that we did for other people necessarily. We want to remember what we did for that place. Oh yeah, remember when I did that, was changed my life, or that was that climax that made that transition into this new place. Of course, we love to do things for others and we remember them, but I think there's that joy of knowing what we do is for us.
Yeah. And I think too, I think sometimes, and obviously this is not all women, but I think as women, I've seen this a lot and I've seen it too. We sometimes serve others to avoid doing what we need to do for ourselves.
Right. So true.
So it's also gaining that honest reflection, but hey, what are you avoiding by doing all these 9 million things? What are you actually avoiding doing within you? And that's normally the voice that's crying the loudest, right? That needs the most attention.
Yeah.
So it's true. Also through this work, you start to see what, are you strengthening a muscle of fear? Are you strengthening a muscle of power?
Right.
What's really going on?
Yeah. Finding that balance. So true.
Yeah.
So with your book, the Chakra Rituals, how do the readers then activate those chakra systems? You mentioned at the beginning, working through week by week, or you could spend a week on, do you have to do those in like order? Can you start at like the fourth chakra and then move around?
For the first time through, obviously there's no right, there's no wrong, but for the first time through, what I would suggest is that you go from beginning to end, because everything builds, and you want to just get a baseline understanding and a baseline read of where you're at right now. Then that's the beautiful thing. Once you have that, so each day you have basically an assignment, you have a practice, and those practices or rituals range from creating sacred space in your home that becomes an outer reflection of what we're trying to cultivate inside,
right,
to mudra practices, which is the energetic and physical connections of the hands. It's like the yoga of the hands. We have breath practices, meditation practices, something that I call body prayers. If anyone already practices yoga, you can think of it as like a sun salutation for each of the chakras that I created, and something else that I call embodiment rituals. So we have this myriad of practices, so many different ways for you to connect in, and then interwoven in between all that is different writing contemplation to bring you into that real self-reflective place and deeper understanding. So once you've traveled through the whole book, then you have this understanding. You can do that daily check-in and be like, okay, what do I need today? Okay, well, I feel like I have maybe a difficult conversation I have to have at work today. I could use some work for my throat chakra. I'm going to go to that chapter and pick one of those practices and do today. My heart has been, I feel like I've been disconnected from my heart, or I feel like I've been to this or that. Okay, well, I'm going to go back and rework. I'm going to spend this next week going into that heart chakra chapter.
Yeah.
So then you can bounce all around and really use it prescriptively. Really amazing, because there's over 50 practices that I share in the book, and I very mindfully made them all less than 15 minutes to try to make it as accessible as possible, because I understand that we're all busy, you know.
Right. But we are the number one. You have to make yourself the priority, and that's self-care, right?
If you want anything to change, you have to take action, and that's unfortunately, a lot of people just want the magic pill to swallow,
the quick fix.
Yeah.
I really like that, having that ritual that you created. And I was thinking about that, and why do you think, this might be like a strange question, but why do you think that the ritual, or do you think that the word ritual has a certain like taboo around it? I was thinking about that word today. I was like, people think, I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think a ritual has a certain connotation? Do you think that we have diminished in our American culture when we think about ritual? We don't have a lot of rituals. We have these holidays and things like that. So I just wondered what your thoughts were about that.
Obviously, ritual is a big word for me.
Right. Personally. Yeah. The title of the book.
Otherwise, I would not have put it in the title of the book.
Yes.
But I can hear what you're saying and honor that too. I made a little, what is it called? I'm forgetting the name. An anagram, is that what it's called? When you take the first letter of each word and you make, I forget what it's called. It has a name. It has a name of it.
I'll think of it in a second. Yeah, I know what you mean though. Yes.
So I didn't do it for that reason, but I wanted to find a way to explain of why I chose ritual. And for me, ritual is anything that you do with heart, anything that you do with devotion, that you give your whole self. Right. So a ritual could be one conscious deep breath, but you're fully here and now, in the here and now for. And yes, I do believe in the West, we live in many ways in a ritual starved society or culture. And I believe part of our healing and awakening as a planet is bringing the sacred back into simple moments. The act of lighting a candle, and just for that moment, and that's it. It doesn't have to be something big and elaborate that you have to memorize. Like, we can make anything sacred. We can make anything a ritual, but it's when we are bringing our whole self to it. We're bringing our heart to it. We're doing it with a sense of reverence and devotion. It's not a mindless,
right.
With the intention. And what I write here, I'll just read it to you. Rituals, just like the chakras, serve as a bridge connecting our outer and our inner worlds. A ritual is anything in which you offer your heart. They give us a sense of freedom to take responsibility for the direction and the purpose of our lives, and help us recognize the meaning and the magic around us, things that are so easily obscured in today's culture. So like, we make the commitment to show up and do it and take the responsibility. And then from that, like, we awaken to this, the magic that maybe our eyes are closed to, that we forgot, that we, like, even just the fact that we're all alive right now, if we like actually breathe and feel into the awe and wonder that actually is and everything that's happening, that our hearts are beating and our blood is, everything that's happening without our, and having to do anything, it is a freaking miracle. And how do you bring that, honoring of that in? I took the word ritual and I said the R was for remembering. Like, rituals help us remember who we are and what we're connected to through this repetition.
Yeah.
And they are they are performed with intention. So the I is for intention, right? There's a purposeful action. There's a mindfulness behind them. And when that happens, their outcome is transformative. So we take the action, we do it with an intention and transformation as possible. And by practicing them, we gain better, the U is understanding of ourselves and the world around us, or the situation, or whatever's happening within our life. Exactly. And then they awaken. The A is our authentic power. They are like that real power that's in you. That's something that's not outside of you. And most of all, I say they activate love, the most powerful energy that there is. So that's the way I redefine it or reframe the purpose of ritual. And as these are just little ways of how can we bring the sacred back into our day, into our life. And again, how you define the sacred might be different than how I define the sacred as well.
Yeah, everybody has a different view of that, depending on what they need. It could be that they like to paint a picture, or they like to use their camera to take a photograph, or who knows what their sacred intention is.
Watch the sunset.
There's so many things that bring us individual joy, which makes us individual beings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I don't, just to be clear, I'm not relating ritual to religion. If anyone is, and because people think, oh, that's like a religious act.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of what I was asking, because I think it's important for that clarity. And I loved exactly how you clarified that, because it's part of that ritual and awakening within us, the part where we can find ourselves again, find that inner joy, find that peace, that how we can help ourselves. And through that's how we help others, when we help ourselves the most. And one other thing I really liked in the beginning of your book, you talked about the transformation as being this integration of the body, mind, and spirit. And why do you think that we're missing so much of that integration and like connection? Is it because we have hit on this a little bit, but I wanted to touch like a little bit further. Do you think that we've just separated, that we've lost that connection? And then I work with patients a lot. They're just like in this physical space so much. Oh, I don't know what would be an example. My toe hurts. So it's like they'll have lost completely the connection to the other parts of the body. Like maybe their toe hurts because they kicked the bed because they were mad at their husband. I don't know. But they've lost all the connection for the pieces of their wholeness.
Yeah, I think for me personally, like until I started on my yoga path, I had no idea what a mind body, like now words like mind body connection are thrown around all the time.
Totally. They're commonplace.
But that's been since the 2000s. So prior to that, I had no idea what mind body
Mind
connection. And it's, you go to the doctor to fix your physical body, you go to the psychiatrist to fix your mind. There was the way our society, and again, there's great value in all these things. So I'm not saying that, but the way in which we approach the person, we're not looking at the whole person. We're not looking at whole person overall. We're not working at whole person. We're not learning whole person well-being in school.
Yeah.
Like we are learning all these different compartments, so that the spirit is here, the body's here, the mind is there. And we're not honoring each of them as this thread, to a piece of our integrated self. And I think that's what whether it's on the conscious level or not, that's been actually a big rise of why yoga has grown so big in the States, even though it's not always done in its traditional form by any means, but it's actually starting to happen organically. People are getting, when I breathe deeply, like my anxiety lowers and I feel more grounded and connected, or when so it's just starting to happen. And I think that people are like, I just feel better, and they're not actually sure why. And now that yoga's become more mainstream, and a lot of doctors' facilities are studying the science of breath work, and they're studying the science of sound healing, and they're studying all these different things. So people are now more open to the idea of, this is real. This is, because I think before it was like, that's out there, or that's too woo woo. That's not real. Oh, you're a hippie, or it was so easily, where now science is like, okay, no, this is like, we got to study
honoring the mindset rituals.
And like whole fields of study have come up. And again, this is not just overnight, like positive psychology. And there's like, I know that came about like more around World War II, but now it's becoming popular. And positive psychology is like just how to live a life of well-being. And then now there's happiness studies, and all of these things are about the integrated, like I could say they're the chakra system in a different form.
Right. Exactly.
But there's science now to back it up, to be like, oh no, this is real. So I think, like it or not, a lot of people, again, want the quick fix. They want, just cut the thing off and stitch it up, it'll be better tomorrow. Or
exactly. Yeah.
It might be. But I do think if our society is evolving in so many different ways, but one of the things that is unfortunately evolving too is we're becoming more unhealthy. Cancers are more rapid. Depression is on, we have more people on medication. So for all these different ways that we're evolving, we're not evolving in this integrated way. And I really think that has to be the next phase of this next rise of humanity, to be able to live whole, full, fulfilled, happy, healthy lives, mind, body, spirit, heart, and connected to all.
Right. Totally. 100% agree. And, I think, yay. And I think it's happening. And I think in a way, in an underground way too, I think that there's the underground collective forming together. And then that's also helping people to be more aware. Like you said in the very beginning, like, you didn't even know what yoga was, like, try it out. And now when you talk about something with someone like, oh, sure. Yeah, I'll try it out. What's that? I think people are becoming more open. Other people are becoming more closed with her. Then they're also like being closed in their own way. If that makes sense. But the people that are becoming more open, they're becoming more of them to the different modalities, the different alternative modalities that are like, every day I hear about something new. I'm like, oh, cool. What's that? I want to learn more. And I think there's a lot of other people out there that are like that. They're coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, and making their voice known about how they want to have that holistic mind, body, spirit healing when they see someone, when they see a practitioner, when they use your book to elevate their body, mind, and spirit, all of those things together. So yes, totally agree.
And it's, my dream would be that we can take the best of the physical science and health and doctors and really merge so that when we do go in for our annual checkup, that we are being we're not just having our heart monitor done and our blood pressure taken,
Right.
but it actually is, that just becomes normal. Like we're checking in on poop so that we can really address the whole
body. Right. Yeah. It has to be. Yeah. And that's happening. It is totally happening, which is great.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, Cristi, as we're wrapping up today, I did have one other fun question since we're moving into 2022. I know I actually have two more fun questions, but one, I love the appendix in your book, and you give so many great resources, and there's a section with the essential oils and the chakras and the affirmations. And I was wondering if you would want to choose something fun to help our listeners to move into 2022. One of those wonderful, you could talk about the essential oil and the affirmation if you want to choose one from the book.
Sure. Just because I have an array of oils right here. So I'm just going to.
I must have known that you did.
Pick one of them. So the one I have here is the wild orange.
Ooh, I love that one.
Yeah, I do too. And wild orange is, yeah.
So good.
I use it specifically to connect in with my second chakra. And it's a really just right away, my mouth starts to water when I smell it, like that juiciness of the orange. And their second chakra is all about water. It's the flow, it's the juiciness. It's that, like it's our sensuality, it's our sexuality, but it's also our abundance. So going into 2022, I think this is a great oil that we can connect into what we really desire, and that we can fully welcome in the abundance that comes from that place of a really true desire, and that we get to have, that we welcome that abundance. So I don't actually remember the exact affirmation, so I'm going to look it up.
No, that's great. That's why you have the book. You're not supposed to remember everything you wrote in there. And I know from my own experience, you have to
exactly. But it's perfect. It's so wild orange connects us to abundance in all areas of our life. And the affirmation is, everything I desire comes to me with ease.
Oh, that's great for 2022.
Right. That if we could approach the new year that way, versus like, I got to do this. Everything I desire comes to me with ease. I'm obviously willing to do the steps necessary. I'm willing to do the work, but everything I desire, all the abundance in every area of my life, comes to me with.
Love it.
Well, that's a great prayer for 2022.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. That's really great. I think that's a wonderful aspect for people. There's so many little jewels and nuggets and diamonds, I should say, in the book. There's also crystals are also in there too. But one last question, then we're going to talk about how people can find you and all that great stuff and get your book, of course. So if you had an unlimited budget right now, what would you do to have the biggest impact on the health and welfare of the planet?
Oh my goodness. Wow. If I had the biggest budget in the world, it would be pulling together, just like I said, pulling the best doctors for the body, for the mind, really creating a system of integrated mind, body, heart, spirit, so like soul medicine. And then creating this beautiful framework, and then that framework be able to be replicated all over the world. So everybody would have access to learning about physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and bring, not discounting all these different modalities, bringing them together in a way that could, I think, really change the way the world is viewed and people's health, I guess, well-being overall.
Right.
So I guess that would be it. Yeah.
I love it, Cristi. That's a great one. And it's not that far out of our reach, right?
Yeah, okay,
yeah. I think we can totally make that one happen. Let's do it for 2022. We at least. Okay. One, how can people find you, your website, And oh, you also have a course starting in January, the 7 weeks of Chakra Rituals, which I'd love for you to talk about. So people can sign, they can't sign up quite yet, right? Let's see. Oh, yes, no, that's right.
People can go ahead and sign up or gift it to their friends for Christmas or the holidays. So the best places to find me is, I'll give you a few. My website is ChristiChristensen.com. My book website is chakrarituals.com, but you can get there from my personal website.
Yeah.
I'm most active social media wise on Instagram, and that's Cristi_Christensen. And I share tons of content and all kinds of fun things. The course that's getting ready that will start mid-January it's called 7 Weeks of Chakra Rituals. And we actually go through the book as global community. I just finished one that just ended last Thursday or last Wednesday. And each week we meet, we have a live gathering via Zoom. I introduce the chakra that we're moving into. I share some bonus content that's not included in the book. And then the amazing part is then you have time to ask me questions, share your stories of what's happening for you, what's been your process. And that's been really amazing. The shares that we've had, this first group, we had 108 women.
Wow, that's amazing.
From over 10 countries. It was just really amazing. And hearing different people's perspectives were based on how they were brought up. And that was something that I underestimated how powerful it would be. And probably some of the people's most favorite part, because they're like, wow, I never imagined I would be getting to connect with all these different women and hear all these different things. And it was quite inspiring and empowering. And the other piece that's really cool about it is, anytime we're trying to create change in our life, like we have to do the work, we have to show up.
Right.
Sometimes it's not easy,
but
knowing you're doing this as a global community, as a collective, like you can also lean into that to help to give you the energy or the power or the time on the days when you don't think you have it. So it's a really beautiful offering, and I hope you'll join me.
Oh, that sounds great. I love it. It sounds super amazing. And what a fun way to start off your 2022 with abundance.
Amazing way to start the year. And you can get my book basically anywhere where books are sold. So from Amazon to Target to Barnes and Noble to Walmart. If you are someone who I strongly hope you'll support, also local bookstores. There's an amazing site called Indie Books, and you type in your zip code and a local bookstore provider will get you the book. So awesome. Yes. And new as I'm a first-time author, and every sale makes a difference. And I really do believe in this book. And if you do too, please share it with your friends and your family and any of the women.
Oh, love it. Thank you so much, Cristi.
Really beautiful.
Yes, it is.
It's really beautiful.
It is beautiful. I love all the colors. It's my alley. Thank you so much, Cristi, for joining us today. I love talking with you about the chakras and your book, and I can't wait to share it with the world. So thanks again for joining us.
Yay! Thank you. It's such an honor and a pleasure.